Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to PE.com, the website of the Press Enterprise newspaper. We are here in Riverside, California. My name is Jack Katzenek. I'm a reporter for the paper's business section. And yesterday we ran a special section on the region's economy, the unemployment issue, and especially some of the people affected by unemployment. Today we've put together a panel of experts who have dealt with this issue in a lot of different ways. And what we're hoping is that some of you watching on PE.com might call us today. These are people, a panel who've helped numerous people in numerous different ways. And I'd like to welcome you all tonight. First, to my immediate left is financial planner Linda Itzen from the Riverside firm Itzen and Associates.
Correct.
Been a financial planner in this area for
21 years.
21 years. Next to Linda is Nick DeMartz. He is the supervisor with the San Bernardino County Department of Workforce Development. So finding people strategies to get new jobs is something he does every day. And on my far left, Dr. Linda Drake. Linda is an industrial psychologist. She's worked with both inland counties on finding people who've lost their jobs new careers and new strategies. Folks, welcome, and it's very good to have you here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We know there's a phone number. You can call in. We'd be happy to take your questions. Also, if you can comment on PE.com, we'll be seeing those comments too. We do have one question, and I'd like to start off, and this is a question that any one of our panel can answer. This is from Mark of Riverside. Mark says, I swore I'd never take handouts, so now I feel like I'm violating my principles by taking unemployment. Unemployment's been around since the New Deal. What is your take on unemployment?
I'll start off, I guess.
Okay.
Unemployment for the short term is something that's absolutely essential, and that's why it was put in place back into the 30s. I think it is something that can help carry people through to give them an opportunity to find other employment. Is it a lifelong thing? I don't think so. In fact, again, short term, maybe find some immediate training that can help them along the way.
And it's not charity. It's essentially it's through your tax money you've paid for a good part of it.
And you're correct. Unemployment insurance is paid through you're employed, and your employer contributes a percentage, and it goes into an account that is there for you to draw out when those particular things occur of a loss of a job.
You know, they should think of it just like any other insurance. As an employer, I pay that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's an insurance premium that I pay. And I think that unemployment is serving its purpose for people to get on their feet. Probably Dr. Drake can talk about the psychological effect a lot more. And I think that keeping your morale up, if you can pay your bills while you're either retraining or looking for work, it's something that's put in place for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Dr. Drake, you can understand how people think that they're less than just by getting unemployment.
But you know, in this day and age and in this economy, there are so many people unemployed, so we can't look at it like there's that many handouts. But at the same time, it is a helping hand. I've also been an employer for a long time and know that we pay those employment taxes in to benefit the people that work for us when they are unemployed. And, you know, it's an attitude of the individual. And we have to to develop an attitude that this does get us through. And my goodness, thank God we have it. Because sometimes it's the last thing that puts the food on our table, pays for our kids' school lunches, or handles those immediate things that we need. But it's in many cases demeaning, and I think that sometimes, in answer to your question, it's more demeaning sometimes for the older person, the older worker, and I say that only because they have probably worked all these many years and have never had to take unemployment. And suddenly they're taking it as something new. Not to say that the younger employee is less considerate, no, not at all, but they haven't experienced these years.
It's interesting to get this question right off the bat because I'm sure there are some who think that unemployed people are slackers. They're saying, hey, free money, sure, I'll stay home and eat cornflakes and watch cartoons, but I'm guessing that's not the case. Most people do not want to take unemployment insurance.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think in our centers, and we have 3 employment resource centers to assist folks who are looking for jobs, that they can come in and use our computers and our faxes and have assistance with, we provide an assessment, skill gaps, and then training that can go along with it. And we have more people who come into our centers percentage-wise are women, even though the number of folks in this day and age, there's a higher percentage of males who are unemployed. But men, for whatever reasons, just they don't feel comfortable. And I think it is that thought of a handout, and especially with folks who have been in the workforce for 20 and 30 years, and 40 years even, and now have to resort to coming into a place and asking for help.
You know, if I could add something to that, looking for a job is the hardest job you'll ever have.
And I agree.
When you're looking for a job, it's stressful, demanding, it's daily, and for many it's half the night. So it's the longest hours, the most stressful, the most hardworking job you'll ever have.
Do you hear from people who lose sleep over it, can't sleep?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. One of the things that we did with closures, and we went actually out to the closures and sometimes would stay a year with a company that was closing to help the people through the stress. And we had a program that we set up for that, but many times it's the worry. It's the worry, the uncertainty, and they lump all their worries together. Personal worries become job worries, and there's no dividing. There's a blur. And of course you can't sleep. And I don't know about the rest of you. I've worried before. I've been through some of those trials in my life, but early morning hours, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, you're wide awake, can't go back to sleep. And you're hardly fit for the family the next day or for your job search, you know.
How do you ward that off? How do you make that pressure ease? At least get a good night's sleep so you're better in the morning.
You know, it's evaluating the problem. It's evaluating what it is, what the stressors are, what gets you faster than anything else, and be able to identify them and divide them out. What are the ones that I can handle right now? What are the ones that are out of my control? Some of them we have no control over. And I think a lot of us worry about the future. And for the older worker, back again to that area, it's what about my retirement? What about what if? And I've worked more with the higher end professional individual in our programs, but one of the things that happens is that everything flares up in their personal life at that time. So they think. They didn't pay so much attention to it before, probably.
Are you seeing, Linda, a lot of people who are, what about my finances now? I'm unemployed. Are you seeing a lot of people stressed over that who are coming to talk to you?
I don't have a lot of clients that have experienced a lot of unemployment. I've seen some furloughing. There's a couple of them that they're unemployed. I have some that have gone out of state, left their families here, and are out of state working. You know, they're doing what historically has been done, type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, they're going where the jobs are. One of the things I was just reading today, a study from the Wharton School of Business, they were pointing out that this generation may be going back to working, and because of what's happened, and because we're living so long, our grandparents really just worked right up until they died, and that they can see that that's going to become more common in our generation. for several reasons, but one of them because people weren't prepared financially for what happened.
I'm 57. I'm okay with that. Do you think a lot of people are going to resent having to work a few years past 65?
Oh, I'm sure
The
there will
people-
be. I know some that are actually almost relieved. It gives them an excuse not to have to exit the workforce.
Yeah.
And I've had them come up, particularly business owners, and tell me, you know, thanks, Linda, because I'm really don't want to exit the workforce. But you know, those people who have physical jobs, those people who get the golden handshake out the door because of age, there's going to be a lot of different things, and these individuals see it more than I do, but it's, you know, like if you haven't kept up with technology, just how long can you work if you've poo-hooed technology, you know?
That is a very interesting point because I spoke with an economist today who took a look at the recession from 1991. That came when aerospace
Right,
and
I remember
defense
that.
kind of folded down in
Yeah.
Southern California. The Cold War was ended. We didn't need a huge defense industry anymore. And it was a fundamental change to our economy, especially in California.
It was.
And it took 4 to 6 years. When there's a fundamental change in the way the economy works, it takes 4 to 6 years to bounce back and kind of reinvent things. He thinks that's going to happen now. It doesn't mean we're going to be in mega high unemployment for another 4 years. But Nick, you see people, you know about people who need to learn new skills.
And
the
I-
economy is kind of reinventing itself.
Right, and they need to. And what you're talking about, and I'm not sure what economist you were speaking to, but the last recessions that we've had, the last 3 recessions that we've had, each one of those has taken longer to bounce back, and we are seeing that right now. This one is probably going to be longer lasting. Unemployment in San Bernardino County for the month of October, we don't have November's results yet, 13.7%, almost 14. You combine that with Riverside County for the Inland Empire, we're over 14% unemployment. The skill levels and gaps that are out there for that worker who was employed for 20 years at the same place or 25 years, they're monstrous. And just going back to what Linda was saying regarding the hardest job is to find a job or to go out and looking for a job, these folks do not have those skills. They don't have those skills to go out and do that. And so it is upon us as the County of San Bernardino, for sure, with our employment resource centers, to make sure that these folks have that and how we can take care of it. New technology, I saw some numbers, and it was about 6 months ago, 3 million jobs in the United States unfilled. And when we're talking about how many folks were unemployed in the United States, how can there be 3 million jobs unfilled? It is because they don't have those skills that are needed, and they need to get back in and gain them. And for sure, IT being one of those. And I'm old, I still use pencil and paper most of the time, but I've had to adapt with a computer and scheduling. And I actually, I'll share with you real quick, and I'll let you get to the next question. I scheduled you on the wrong day today. Fortunately, I had someone who paid attention to my calendar for me.
In my office, they say that's job security when they can keep the boss going.
Okay, and kind of a related question coming in over the internet. Somebody is asking, what's the best way to take skills from one career and devote them to another? This is a person who claims he or she does not know where to take this question. Where are the experts here?
All transferable skills, but I'll let him take it.
Well, and both of us can, actually. We have software that are in our centers that we have, and therefore transferable skills. So the position that you have working for a manufacturer, some of those skills that you have could be transferred over into the logistics industry or something, completely that you think is unrelated, but there are a lot of skills. So we have software that you list these skills, and it will then identify other occupations or other industries you should look at.
It's pretty much what I was going to say. And it's having the confidence to be able to do it. so often you can recognize them, but they don't know how to go after them. But I can't recommend enough getting to these career centers that, with San Bernardino and Riverside County both, with WIA, and learning. I mean, you can do it at home once you learn. It's so easy.
And Nick, for the record, workforce development centers for San Bernardino County are in
City of San Bernardino, Rancho Cucamonga, and Hesperia. So we're a big county, and we have these offices spread out. And hopefully we can get anyone who's looking for employment into those centers. We want to try and get them back to work.
and Riverside, and
Yes.
I'm doing this from memory. They're
They
in
have-
Hemet, Indio.
Indio as well. They
and
have the ones.
Temecula?
Temecula.
Temecula.
That is correct.
Again, you have there are skills you don't even realize that if you build construction framing for 25 years, that might work building pallets for a warehouse.
That is correct.
Good
That's right.
example of transferable
Right.
skills.
Absolutely. So folks who are out looking for employment need to get into resource centers, need to work with outplacement folks that are out there. If they don't want to go into a center and they want that one-on-one, there are places that can work with them as well.
Are there outplacement places that can take a person who's got no funds?
Well, it doesn't cost
Cost
anything to
come
go.
into our centers.
Yeah,
Our
that's-
centers
that's true.
are at no cost. So,
I have a question from Dan in Moreno Valley. He's 32,
okay.
and it's actually a good question. How long should I wait for a job in my field, which in Dan's case is retail, before I go back to school and learn something new? We have people unemployed a year and a half, some of them going on 2 years. And I guess everybody's situation is different, but what's a good ballpark?
I would
thinking
have
there?
to wonder, when he means going back to school, is it a technical school? Is it through the, the counties, the resources that are available? Is he talking about college and a degree? There's a big
Yeah,
step there.
There's a small commitment versus the big
Yes,
commitment.
yes. For those that are looking at finishing their college degree, it's certainly a good time to do that, without a doubt. But again, you got to be sure you're going into something where when you finish that degree, you're going to have a job. And so that varies. So I would say the evaluation through, your centers would be much more feasible.
And I'm the only thing I would add to that, and it is just, this is personal observation, but I believe it to be true since I have hired people throughout my life, and my colleagues here have done the same. I believe it is much easier to get the job you want when you already have employment. Business, in the back of business's mind, is still, if this person is employed and wanted by their employer, they must have skills that I am interested in, I want. So I would recommend that they find something for right now, and that is one of the things that's out there. A lot of folks saying, I don't want to take a $10 an hour job, I can make that much on unemployment, and so I'm going to wait for the job to return. Well, in many cases, this is a transitioning world that we are in, and those jobs may not be there. There are going to be jobs, I don't want to scare anyone. In the next coming years, there will be job opportunities out there. Just may not be the same jobs that we're accustomed to in the past.
Definitely. I always say it's like the old days of dating. I don't suppose any of us ever remember that, but you want them to want you. So when you're there and you've got a job and you're wanted by companies and other people and you're needed, you set a whole different atmosphere. You want them to want you.
A lot of people found jobs fairly easily for 10 or 15 years in Riverside and San Bernardino
Correct.
counties. Now you have people that had not been to a job interview in a long time. What would you coach them? I mean, what do you tell them before they're getting ready to put on their
start?
suit and tie?
Go ahead.
In our centers, we actually have workshops to do exactly that. And so those workshops are on interview techniques, job search techniques, resume writing, all of those things to work with individuals. And it is not only for the person who has a limited time in the as far as employment. It is for folks, we have workshops as far as networking for folks who have been in jobs for 15, 20 years, white-collar jobs. How can we help them? And knowing that throughout my lifetime, most folks find employment, although I would like to think that it is because of our employment resource centers or the PE.com or wherever to find jobs. Most people find jobs because I know Linda, or I know Jack. And it is networking, and that is one of the things that is so important for folks to go out there. Contact brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, friends, relatives. Where do they work? Is anyone hiring? What types of jobs?
I got an email last week from a publicist who was trying to promote a book for an author. Never heard of the book or the author, but the subject was, if you go to a Christmas party, don't be afraid to do some networking. Right. Even though it's, the season to be jolly, you're not supposed to take business to a Christmas. I mean, I think if you're unemployed and need work, the heck with that. I'm gonna make new friends and contacts and hand out my business card to anybody I can find. I mean,
I'd like to say something financially, give some financial advice to this individual. Piggybacking on what Dr. Drake said is that I would suggest this young man consider working part-time and going to school part-time. And then on top of that, have a job designation or a thought of what they're going to do with that degree, if it's a degree program. Don't go major in philosophy and get a bachelor's in philosophy unless you're going to get a PhD and teach in it, because in the workforce, I don't know what your experience is, but it's not worth anything out there. So there needs to be a purpose. But I think from a financial standpoint, people have got to go back and consider doing schooling part-time and working part-time. I don't care if it takes 6 to 10 years to get it, because if he goes into debt and comes out of school 2-3 years later, all I've got is debt and no job. And 6 months later, those college loans have got to start being paid on. So I think we have to have a little bit more long-term perspective and get away from my generation's thought of you got to go through college in 4 or 5 years or you're, that's not going to be it. And then the practical side is what I'm hearing. These colleges are impacted. It's really not that easy to get in as a full-time student either. That it's very, very difficult.
Could I add something to that? Since I'm very involved with Cal Baptist University, which is right up the street here, if you've got a few credits and things like that, they've got programs for working people. Also now they've got online. You can get an online degree. And years back, online degrees were not with highly accredited schools. But now you have somebody that's highly accredited and very well thought of, and one of the top 15 liberal arts schools in the country, and you can literally go online at your own convenience. You can work and do it at night. And I know so many people that have done that. They got a bachelor's degree and master's degree.
Linda, do you find people who don't have a reasonable goalpost and a reasonable end zone, like you say, get yourself a goal that's attainable and makes sense after you graduate? Do you find a lot of people try the wrong degree or try?
I think what I see are parents who are very focused on their kids getting college educations, and the young people don't have a clue what they want to do with that degree. And so we're having some very liberal arts education, which is great, but in this economy, it's not producing jobs. So here they've racked up, mom and dad have sacrificed retirement to pay for it, or they've racked up or a lot of college loans, and now there's no job. So then some of them are going, okay, we're going to go rack up more debt and go get a master's degree. And there's going to be something to pay down the road.
I remember seeing somebody on TV being identified as a liberal arts major, and I remember my dad saying, that's next year's unemployed person.
Oh,
Well, I'd like to follow up because we do have training that's out
Yes.
there, and our training is primarily career technical education, and I think it plays a valuable role. What we have, unfortunately, with the budgets being as they are, in the community colleges in particular, is they keep cutting back on those particular jobs. There are a lot of folks who are plumbers and electricians and in those career fields that have made great livings and continue to do so, make a heck of a lot more money than I do, and have good retirement and all of those things
Right.
that are going on. But it is focused around what does that degree lead you to. So if it is something in liberal arts, do we have a direction? I agree with you wholeheartedly. Where is this going to take me? Am I working currently somewhere, and once I get that degree, there are opportunities for career advancement with it?
Well, I've got to add to this, since the Career Center at Cal Baptist University is the Dr. Linda P. Drake Career Center, I would say that the students that are entering our school have a pretty good evaluation, consultation, and overhaul, if you want to call it, on what they're going into. And there's no promises that you're going to get this big job. We don't need that. We have enough students coming in that we want to be sure those kids are successful when they come through there. So we do have a tremendous amount of evaluation. They don't just walk in and enroll.
And they are, and that's why smaller institutions have done so well during these times. Unfortunately, the Cal States and those really are impacted with the numbers that come in there and don't have that opportunity to sit down with someone and say, okay, you're looking to get a bachelor's degree in public administration, and where are you going with that? Where is that career path going to take you? I remember graduating a couple of years ago, and I walked out and I was thinking, okay, now where are these people who want to hire me because I have this degree? And none of them were around. And I'm still looking for them, as a matter of fact. But it is to have something in mind and have someone there to counsel you and work with you to make sure.
Internships
That
and
is
mentoring
correct.
programs.
Yes, very important.
A question from Mary in Corona. Mary is 42. She has not worked for a year. She'd like to know, is this time to take money from my 401k? No specifics from Mary about how much money she needs, how much money she has to draw down, but a 42-year-old person who hasn't worked in a year, is that time a good time to use the 401k?
well, it's a matter of whether you have any choices. What are the choices? You know, that should be the last place, because most people you're going to have to pay federal, state tax, plus 10% IRS penalty. But you know what? We are getting into bad times, and I understand that people are having to pull. But you know what? You've got to start making priorities. Would I pull it to keep a mortgage payment on a house that I'm upside down on? You got to think longer term. Are you just putting your finger in the dike, you know, by doing that, or do you need to do a complete reassessment of what's going on and what your life is going to be? Sometimes I think these times are dictating that we really need to start over. From what I'm hearing from these individuals, from what I'm reading, this isn't going to go away next year. So if you're just putting your finger in the dike, taking money out of the 401k plan to pay a mortgage, you're still going to have the problem when the money's gone. I think you need to reassess where you are. Sometimes we have to cut our losses and move on. There is a reason this was called the Great Recession, you know, and so it really is, it's not a one answer thing, but I think it's an opportunity to sit and look at where do I need to cut my losses and start over.
And it could be she'd be throwing good money
Yeah.
after bad.
Yeah, it's very possible. I don't know, you know.
We
that's-
did, go ahead.
It's just one area, not knowing all the circumstances, but those are the things that an individual would need to look at before they start doing that.
We did speak a few weeks ago about a woman who was roughly that age who started saving at what I consider a remarkably young age. This was a woman who started a 401k when she was maybe 27. When I was 27, I didn't save, I swear to God, not a thing. Now she's been unemployed, an extended unemployed person. And actually, this person might actually be able to rebuild. She's been using her 401k to pay her mortgage. She might actually be able to rebuild her 401k in the 25 more years she has in the workforce.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, some people do not have an affordable house. Person that just called is from Corona. Corona is not one of our cheaper communities.
I'm hoping that people will go back to the basics, and when they start over, that they won't continue to live from paycheck to paycheck. I mean, it really is, you need to have cash reserves. It's that old-fashioned money for a rainy day, but I understand nowadays that some people have gone through that. And some people are on unemployment. Some people are now starting to lose assets. You know, but when they restart the whole thing, I'm hoping that people will save money and buy it instead of putting it on a credit card.
Yeah.
You know, who knows how many will, but
My grandparents learned some lessons in 1932, and I think
Yeah.
I'm learning some myself right now.
yeah.
This is a question from, well, I do not have the name, but I remember the question. Person, it's a good question for Nick, because this, someone is sending out resumes,
Okay.
and, you know, businesses are getting them by the hundreds. It seems like a black hole to her. She just sends resumes. She'd like to get the resume critiqued, and I understand that's
Okay.
a service that you guys
And
can
that
help
is a
with.
service, and that's both Riverside County and San Bernardino County have. So I recommend that she gets into one of those offices. Those services are at no charge. And if there are some helpful hints, they can certainly sit down and work with her on that. For individuals who haven't put together a resume in many years, or who have never put together a resume, they have workshops on that, and we have individual counselors that will sit there and help them as well.
There are a lot of mistakes about resumes. I came across one. It was one of those large employment agencies. I think it was CareerBuilders.com. And we had a good laugh with them at the Press Enterprise when it came out, because this person, there's people who put their cat's photo on the resume, or some people put pictures of them in a bathing suit. But the fact is, a lot of people do make mistakes when they
Right.
put together resumes. I mean, all kidding
Right.
aside.
And even if you believe you have a good resume, it is okay to go into one of those centers and have someone look at it. Or have even friends look at it, or something like that. It is very important. You'd be surprised on how many times people maybe misspell a word, or use it in the wrong context, or something of that nature. A resume is out there to tell the absolute best about you. That's what it is. A resume is
Well,
telling the best.
The resume is telling the best, but it's the first presentation the employer has of the individual. So you can immediately conjure up all kinds of ideas, like you did, Jack, when you got that resume about this person. You know, we don't need to know that they were in the Cub Scouts and all of those things. That, you know, but again, it's that first representation of the individual that's looking for a job.
And the person sending that resume has to think of the person who's reading them, who is going to read 300 that day. If your resume is 14 pages long, the person reading the resume is going to go, oh, the heck with this. And you're out of the mix.
And probably not read it. And
Yeah.
I think one of the big things with the resume, what it should be, is it should be offering in there what you have to give to that business, wherever you're applying.
That's
That's what it really, that's the important piece. Why do they want you? You want me because I can provide skill X, or I can do Y. Those are the types of things that you need to be putting in a resume.
As opposed to going into it thinking, what can this company do
Right.
for me? It's entirely the other way around.
Or the 500 things I did in the past that are totally unrelated to the place that you're applying.
Could I just add one more thing to that? Again, I see sometimes, and again, when people don't understand writing a resume, we can understand. But to tell people if you have skills in this certain area, then how did it make a difference in that company? You know, marketing skills that impacted and did this and resulted in that, rather than just write your skills down that you have.
Very important.
Another question from a web watcher, and again, money is on people's minds. This person's asking about bankruptcy. Is it important to try to avoid personal bankruptcy? Apparently, a lot of people that are on the or that are advertising are urging people make bankruptcy easy. You know, lawyers are on TV going, "We can help you with your debt," and bankruptcy is apparently. This person believes it's in vogue. Do you agree with that bankruptcy is a good option?
Oh, it's an interesting question because I'm a member of the Financial Planning Association and their website. I've had just in the last week 2 people off of that website call my office with bankruptcy questions, and I really don't handle that type of thing. I think bankruptcy is, number one, a person needs to work with their accountant, their tax person, and look at that first if there's other ways or how it's going to impact them. And I know it's difficult for a lot of people because it's a moral issue for some people. And I certainly would feel that way. But again, you've got to make that decision based upon sound facts, not on what the local advertising attorney tells you, because remember, they're hungry.
Yeah.
They also have a very high unemployment rate right now.
And they're paid by the bankruptcy.
Yes, they are. So, you know, I think they need to do their homework. They need to look at the implications of it, what it's going to do, and quite honestly, how they got there. If someone's going to file bankruptcy and not repeat it, it's like any other thing. They need to look at how did they get to this point? What brought this on? What are they going to do different, or are they just going to be repeating the same thing? It's putting your finger in the dike again. You know, it's very multifaceted.
No easy answers there.
No, there isn't, unfortunately. But if someone does go forward, make sure they got the numbers all together, and that's where a tax person would be of big help to them.
Okay. This is from Sally in Redlands. Sally would like to know how she can refer to being, okay, you've been unemployed for 2 years. How do you refer to that on your resume?
I'll let you start that.
On vacation?
Well, I don't think I would actually point it out on my resume. I would show it as my work history, you know, my employment history, and I would just start at the last job, unless in the meantime, you know, I was able to pick up something or did something else. But I certainly wouldn't make that the highlight of my. But I would not indicate that I've been unemployed for 2 years on my resume.
Do you think things being the way they've been for the last 2 years, most employers will kind of understand that it's entirely possible this person was unemployed for 2 years and not hold it against him?
I'm not going to say that it is, that business would not say, yes, there's a possibility of that. I think it would be back to what I had addressed earlier, and it's regarding taking employment, even though it is maybe not in the career field that you're interested in, and it is not paying the dollars, and maybe unemployment pays even more. But to take a job and get yourself back into work, I think that's very important, because if I was an employer, and I'm not doing any hiring because we're not doing any hiring at the county, but I would have to think they held off for that long, and that those are false hopes that I would guess that they're hanging on to. false hopes that that job is going to return or in that industry. And it probably isn't if she's been out there and looking for that many years. And I don't have an answer as far as, yes, you can go ahead, but for sure I would not address it. The other thing is many times that it would be coached upon have you volunteered at the church? Have you helped out with any charitable organizations and been doing that? And so if you needed to explain it away and were lucky enough to get to an interview, then I would reach back and think of all of the other things that I've been doing in the community that I was actually an asset for that community. But I would not address that I've been unemployed for 2 years in any way, shape, or form unless they absolutely, put me on that spot to do that.
But as Nick said, if you would have the opportunity after 2 years with a good resume and some networking, get your foot in the door, then I would carefully work with that. But sometimes 2 years out of work, maybe it was just 2 years out of work, not just unemployment. They took care of an elderly parent, their children was getting off to school. There might have been other reasons there, so we have to be very careful
And
how we
how we're saying
approach
it.
that.
And if you do have a period where you were unemployed but you volunteered at a church, definitely have that on the resume.
I would have that in some way or be prepared to respond to that. And you're correct, because the unemployment for the 2-year period, not knowing what it is, that they're out of work, the 99 wakers, as we're calling those, the 99ers, were there other circumstances that said, for right now, for this 6 months or this year, I have other things that are going on that I do need to take care of. We have income coming in. Things are livable. So,
Well, you can understand how people feel about long-term employment when you hear politicians in Washington saying we can't extend unemployment benefits because people will just want to stay out of work and not go back to work again. They obviously are totally naive to what really is happening or what the money is being used for.
I've spoken to lots of unemployed people in the Inland Empire, and I don't think I've run into a single one who wants to be unemployed or who's enjoying his or her vacation.
Well, the vacation soon gets old.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Been there. It was a long time ago. I've been there, and it does get old.
When your wife tells you to go to work, or the kids say, "Aren't you a dad? Don't cook anymore. Go and get a job." That's.
A couple of questions from that came in over the phone. Letitia from Riverside would like to know: is a headhunter worth the money?
okay.
No. Not in this economy.
I think part of that, probably longer than 20 years ago, headhunters had played a role primarily in the professional arena that they did. What has occurred is if business is out there and truly needs individuals, they actually pay for that. And you see that through employment agencies and things like that. The employer will actually pick up that tab or premium that we're talking about. So I'm not sure that it is, unless it was some specific, really specific industry or real specific occupation that maybe was not available. But in this day and age of the internet and things that are going on, I'm not sure that their position, just as the headhunter that I'm thinking of, and I know I'm a lot older than most anyone, and so I'm thinking of the headhunter of many years ago, back in the 60s and 70s. So.
Essentially, with the internet, we can be our own headhunter now.
That is correct.
During unemployment, I see that so often. People want to be able to say, "I've got a job." More than anything, they'll take all sorts of jobs sometimes in the beginning, and they'll pay to get a job just to say they have a job, which doesn't work out. Recently, we were at a hotel in a resort area, and there was a group that had, there must have been 1,000 young people there who were being hired by them. And they all had an investment. Every one of them had to make an investment. They came from all over the country to get this job, to make an investment to go to work for this company selling knives. after you sell your first set of $2,000 knives on payments, with payments to somebody, who are you going to sell your next set of knives to? You've already put your 2,000, plus you got to buy your kit. And I went online, there was a lot written up about it, but that's one of the things that I've seen so often with people. They would slide into these occupations, and that's why I think when, I don't know what she's actually talking about there specifically, but you want to be able to say, I'm working. The best words that you can say is, I got a job. So there's a lot of danger in that too.
Got a couple of more resume questions. This is from Cole in Murrieta. Cole would like to know, should I only show my last 10 years experience? He'd like to know why he shouldn't list all 28 years. We did talk about that. Resumes need to be a page and a half long.
And I think, to me, showing pertinent information is the most important. So it is okay to, using dates and things of this nature. There are various ways to write a resume, but you need to be careful. And for someone like myself to put my work history down, and I would be dealing back to 1910. No, I'm kidding, but almost that long. And so that provides the age. So if someone who is reading those resumes is looking for someone who's 30 years old, and you're putting 28 years of work experience down there, then you may be just pushed to the side because of that. I think whatever position you're applying for, and wherever you've had those skills that have assisted a business or helped a business, those should be listed on there. And so if you're missing a few spots in there, then there are ways of writing a resume that are not necessarily dealing with dates. And I would go back to the young lady who was out of work for 2 years. There are other ways of writing resumes of showing the last employment date was 2008.
And kind of a related question that came on the internet. If you've got interim jobs, like you worked as a store clerk for 3 months while you're filling in while you're unemployed, should those be on your resume?
Okay.
Well, along the same line, 28 years ago, some of those skills are obsolete, so they don't need to have them on, or 1910
that is correct. That is
skills. But I don't know. I would have to see what they actually, what they are type of skills. Some people go to work for the Census Bureau for doing census. They do various things. If that particular job and the skill, I would say that's not wrong to somehow work that in your resume. I don't think I'd jump in and make it a full blown, but you certainly want to let them know that you've been working, you've been trying, you're doing everything, possible.
And so maybe what I would do is somehow lump those jobs together in some way.
Definitely.
But again, we're back to the reason for a resume. The reason for the resume is, what do I have to bring to this business that is going to benefit them? And so if it is part-time jobs, or they are seasonal, or something like the census, or a ski resort, or wherever, then make sure that you have that listed in some way. There are ways of putting things together. Again, folks that in those career centers can assist them in doing that, or outplacement centers for sure.
For the higher end professional that we've worked with, a cover letter also can be a way to address, that your loyalty, your commitment, and whatever. We always tell people we want them to want you. We have to look at attention and how long we can keep the attention of an individual when they're reading. There is a rule that you go by for that. And in that first paragraph in a cover letter, you want them to want you right there, pretty much, without going in and digging into all of the little details. Because by the time then they get your employment history and see that you've had a little gap, well, they've got a feeling for you. So there's other ways that you can, each person is so individual. And
even though I'm a very small business owner, what both of them have said about understanding the employer's perspective. I think this is an opportunity for them to understand. I have a bias. My bias is I have a student that maybe's just graduated and comes in. Well, they've never worked. They've never worked, and they've bought into the fact that, college degree means everybody's standing at the doorstep. They've never worked in fast food, they've never worked in construction, they've never done any work history whatsoever. And they were pointing that up. We employers are sensitive to that because we're not some big corporation. It is money out of my pocket that I'm investing in someone. I am paying payroll taxes. I am paying all these things, health insurance, all these things. So what the two of them are saying and about having some type of work experience, doing some type of work really does influence us that are employers. I think in good times, people just sort of desensitized to the person that was putting the money out and felt like sometimes they were owed a job. But if they can really focus on what these two have said, think about what the employer wants. And if they focus in their head about that employer's hard-earned money is going to be paying me, and what can I bring to them? And like I say, it's a rude awakening for some of these people to realize they really have to bring something to us.
And think about all the employers who haven't made it.
Yeah.
And think about why. What went wrong
It's
for them.
really a risk for us to hire someone. It's a big risk.
And I would tend to go along with exactly what you're saying, because throughout many of these years, and I work with businesses as well as primarily with businesses, but with job seekers as well. And I don't think there are a whole lot of businesses who want to be employers. If you can get away with it,
Yeah.
because it is much easier to not have employees. And there's a large investment. I don't care what the job is, and it can be picking up trash or vacuuming or sweeping. There is still training that goes on. That's number one, that is incurred. For sure you have pay into FICA, UI, health insurance, all of those things. In this day and age, it is, even at the very basic of things, and I'm not sure about how health insurance is going to impact everyone here in these next couple of years, but it's 20-some%. You take that wage and you add 20-some% to that, and you can attest to that as a business. That's the additional cost that business has incurred to bring you on as an employee, beside the wage, the hourly wage that they're providing, and beside the amount of time that they've spent in training, taking away from doing the other duties that they can to make money.
And then on top of that, even though you are counseling them what to say, address my needs, how can you help me, as an employer, you don't really know until you get them on the job. People can tell you and say anything.
That's why we have probation.
Right.
Yeah, and there is still the risk when we think we have
That's
found
right.
somebody, because we may be good at what we do, but we may not be good HR people. And a small employer, and in this economy, most people are not going to have an HR person because,
That is correct.
they need to cut
It's a
costs.
snapper.
They need to cut costs. And my self-employed that are my clients, their biggest headache is the HR role. Their biggest headache is that. It's the most risk for all of us, and so you're emphasizing, I think you're right on to these people, that they need to approach employers with, what can I bring to the table? And some enthusiasm, which has got to be awfully hard to have if you've been unemployed. It is a mind game.
especially in California where HR is as complicated as can be.
And so, Jack, I'm going to throw a plug in here for our business services, since that's what I'm
Yes,
really a
please
part
do.
of. Business services in San Bernardino County, we contracted with a group called California Employers Association. And they have folks, you can pick up the telephone, any business that is located in our county, you pick up the phone, and you can call in with HR questions, and they are experts on the other end that will respond to you. And it is at no charge for the businesses throughout our county. And just exactly what Linda's talking about. The small business owner is the person who runs that business, is their financial person, is their HR person, and it's probably their janitor as well. So they do not know a lot about HR, and HR issues are just monstrous out there and can get you in trouble. One single harassment or just a wrongful termination can close a business down in a heartbeat. So.
Expounding a little bit on something Linda was talking about employers and employees. 10 years ago, it really wasn't that uncommon for an employee to get a better offer after a couple of months. It was very competitive. Everybody wanted the best employees. Business was booming, and there was a lot of movement. Do you think as we finally come out of the recession, maybe there'll be kind of new attitudes of loyalty? Maybe employees would want to kind of rally around their boss a little bit more? We've all been through, I mean, they say this recession is a war.
I
We've
don't
been through a
expect
war
it.
together.
I
We've
don't
been through wars.
expect it,
You
no.
don't expect that?
I don't expect it.
And I, looking from both ends, and also I owned a business for 5.5 years, struggled with that thing, and ended up closing that business and working. And I worked in private businesses for a number of years. The 1960s, the 50s, the 60s, there were, and 70s, and even to some part of the 80s, there were jobs that were called permanent jobs. That was a feeling that was out there. In this day and age, that has gone away, and especially with large businesses, with takeovers and buyouts and things like that, you no longer have what was perceived to be the loyalty of a business owner. The Henry Fords and the folks like that who took care of their employees, and the employee who then had loyalty. So I think it's from both deserve a slap on the wrist for this. The employee who jumped for 25 cents an hour, and the business who didn't care. Is that going to change?
Good point.
I'm not
I don't
sure.
think so.
Yeah, I'm
Human
not sure.
nature, that's Dr. Sheeter's specialty.
Yeah, you
Human
can
nature
mention that.
is
It is.
such that,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're down to a few minutes left, and here's a question. We can maybe go around the table once. Person is wondering if his 36-year-old daughter should move here. She's a nurse. She's specifically asking about Loma Linda's new medical center down in Murrieta. We can't answer for them about when they will or won't be hiring, but actually, what are the hot job fields? Look ahead a year or two.
Okay.
You maybe you know people in school right now looking for a major. What should they major in?
Well,
Where are we
financially, I
going?
would say don't move until you have a job secured.
Good.
I just absolutely, people say quote unquote things, and yet even in the nursing field, the jobs are being lost in this area. You know, it depends upon a lot of things. It depends upon their education, their experience, the particular niche. And you know what these two have brought up? Their networking. But from a financial standpoint, I would tell this young woman, do not move until you have secured a job. And then I tell people, take it the next step. Go and rent a place to live. Do not put down roots until you know that this is going to pan out, that this is what you want. I think part of our problems is that we've become so permanent that we're not picking up and moving as much to where the jobs are. And it's because we've thought that everybody has to own a house and that was right for everybody.
At the age of 32.
Or even 25, you know, what type of thing. I can't tell you how many times I heard that if I don't give Johnny this money for a down payment, and Johnny's in his 20s, Johnny will never be able to afford a house. Now, this was before the bust, but if I had $1 for every time I heard that, and I just rolled my eyes and cringed, But I really think that good financial advice would be get the job, go, and try it out.
And I would agree with that, and just a little bit of a follow-up to that. Not knowing where the individual would be moving from. So if they're moving from Gulfport, Mississippi, and they're coming to California, they may have a rude awakening, or a small rural community. It may be a whole different life. And so for sure, try it out and see what's going on. As far as career fields that are out there, no one was unaffected by what has gone on. But healthcare for sure is an area that is going to come back. Right now, as far as RNs, pretty much you have to have experience, or you can find yourself at a convalescent hospital working 12-hour shifts on nights and weekends. But with what is going on in the healthcare world as far as reform, and folks living a whole lot longer, there are going to be job opportunities in the healthcare field. And it's population driven is what that industry is. And this area is growing. So we are going to see that. Transportation logistics industry is something that is here. We're close to the ports. The land is still inexpensive, comparatively speaking, to LA and Orange County. So we are going to see growth in that. As far as major growth in other areas, we're going to see pockets. IT for sure is one area, but it's not going to employ the hundreds of thousands of people that construction employed, and that's the area that has affected us most dramatically. And you and I have talked a little bit on that. The construction industry has impacted this area harder than anywhere else, and that's why
so easy to get a construction job before.
And the building that was going on in the Inland Empire of houses, and any of us who lived there and saw all of these new housing tracts going in, and where are those folks who are building them? Because as soon as they're built, they need to go to another housing tract, and there are no other housing tracts. So,
Linda, any thoughts about what might be hot in the next few years?
Hot as far as
Good jobs
and whatever. I was thinking about something this morning. I live in a little community outside of town here in Lake Matthews, and I can't tell you how many people are looking for cleaning people, electrician, drywall people. All these, we can't find anybody. And I keep saying, why aren't more people starting some jobs? It doesn't mean that I would go out and clean. Listen, I've done things. I've delivered newspapers, not newspapers, phone books. I've done these things when I needed to make money. I'm from the old school here.
Yeah.
But why isn't someone starting businesses? I know there's one person mentioned in there today.
My colleague Leslie Berkman interviewed someone who was a construction foreman, I believe, who is now a
I saw
handyman
that.
and doing
Yeah.
busy all the time.
right.
But when we lived in Orange County, there was a cleaning service that came to our house. She arrived, they set up the thing, she drove off and left them, and they would have another cleaning group, and these people were legal. It wasn't, an illegal situation. And we would love to have that again, but there's nobody looking to do. And as we talked earlier, Jack, it looks like a lot of people are workers. They want to work for people, not start their own business. And it would be nice to see some more smaller businesses start up.
I would be intimidated by it. It may not be for everybody, but we're all doing the best we can.
There is a reason after 5 years that only 20% of them
That
are
is
still in
correct.
business. Is
You
that
got-
still the numbers?
that is still-
20%
that
after
is still
5
the
years?
numbers,
Yes. Yeah.
There is a reason.
Well, again, undercapitalized and no management skills
Right.
and, whatever. But there's got to be, and I think there's some programs to
There
help
are
people start.
entrepreneurial programs that are out there right now and looking at ways of how do you assist individuals. and programs through the Workforce Development Department, there are some things that we can. If I might say, Cal State San Bernardino has a fantastic program with entrepreneurial program, Dr. Mike Stull, and been doing this for quite a while, and so for those folks who want to do this, and I think we are going to see more, but folks, again, I tend to agree with you, do not realize the effort that it takes to run a business.
Oh, I know.
Right, both of you, yes.
In my business,
Right.
they'll look at a mature business like, oh, I can do this. This is
Right.
real easy. And they don't know the 80 hours I spent the first 5 years in business a week. And 80 hours a week, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you've been a very good panel. I really enjoyed talking to all three of you. I hope the listeners got something out of it, and if one person got a job from what we wrote over the weekend or what any of you say, I will be really, really happy.
Yes, we are.
Again, Linda, Nick, and Linda, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming down tonight. Thank you all for listening, and this has been the Press Enterprise. I'm Jack Katzenek, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Great.